Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Drive Pink Dialogue. Today, we are recapping Inter Miami's 2-1 victory over Nashville SC at Geodis Park last night. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I thank everyone who joins us for this episode. As always, I'm your host, Scotty. I'm here with my co-host, Saur. How are you feeling tonight, man?
I'm feeling great, man. I love the weekends in the summer because we've got so much football, so much sports. It's always fun. I don't even need to move in front of my TV, which is great. But it's always better when Inter Miami wins. So I'm feeling great. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm realizing that the Euros and Copa America are starting to drain on my productivity a little bit because I feel like I can always just say, should I do that thing or should I just watch some soccer? And I've been trending towards soccer a lot lately. Skrilla, congratulations on predicting the score right. I think you definitely did better than either of us, or at least me for sure. But Inter Miami does get the win, which is something that everyone got except for me. So I applaud all of you and thank you for your belief in the team. There's a lot of things to talk about around the world of Inter Miami, and maybe we should talk about them quickly so we can get to a really fun game that happened last night. I don't know if you saw the news about the third kit. I just saw this earlier today, but yesterday afternoon, LAFC put together a video talking about how they're revealing their third kit on July 16th. And from what I can tell, all across MLS, the third kits are going to be the same theme. So they're like retro-y throwback type of kits with the city name on the front. And so it's like a similar vibe from Adidas. And I think July 16th might also be the day we get Inter Miami's third kit. We've seen plenty of mock-ups to know fairly confidently what it's going to look like, sort of a teal with whitish opaque stripes on it, and then the phrase Miami on the front in white, a little bit of an orange sort of accents with some white. Any comment about the jerseys? Or are you just ready to see what they look like on Messi?
No, I'm actually Googling what the LA jersey looks like, so I have a point of reference. But I'm gonna definitely buy one kit. I'm not sure which one it's gonna be soon. But hey, if this one turns out good, might as well. I saw the Real Madrid black third kit that they released recently, and that looks so nice. So if it's anything close to that, you know what? I'll probably get it.
For LAFC?
No, for Miami. Come on.
Oh, okay. I actually like the LAFC.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I've decided to change loyalties midway through the season. I'm going to be an LA fan from now on. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the other thing is Robbie Robinson is no more. Happy to sad. Robbie Robinson last week got surgery for a calf issue or an ankle issue, and he made it seem like maybe he's done for the season. We haven't seen him all year. And yesterday, Inter Miami made official, released him, opened up a roster slot. He was on the supplemental roster, I believe, and so I don't think this affects what they can do moving forward, but it does give them a little bit more space, a little bit more room. They might be able to promote one of the young kids to the roster. They might be able to maneuver to create another opening. He wasn't on an international roster slot, but that is a little bit of cap change. Any eulogy for Robbie Robinson?
It's an end of an era, man. It almost feels like the OG Inter Miami has sort of now disappeared with a new generation taking over. Robbie Robinson was one of the last few left on the roster from the original squad. We've got Drake Allender, the last member left, and I think he's going to still be with Miami for a while. But once he leaves, then that's officially the end of our first chapter. But it's a sad day, man. I'm disappointed. I'm sad that he picked up an injury and we're not going to see him in an Inter Miami kit anymore. Hopefully he's able to get his career back on track and find a team that's willing to take him on. And there's definitely a player still there. I think he can still play at the professional level, but we'll see. Speedy recovery to him.
Yeah, hopefully he gets healthy soon and he's ready to attack next season, plausibly in the USL. I imagine that's where he'll get his next chance. But I wouldn't be surprised if he becomes another one of Inter Miami's players that goes somewhere else and ends up being better off for it. He is the second to last original member of Inter Miami on the roster. Drake Callender, like you mentioned, the last from the original squad. But Inter Miami has seen half the roster turnover every single season. So the idea that players are coming and going, not unfamiliar to Inter Miami fans and those that have been following the team for quite some time. So sad to see Robbie go. I do think, and I've thought this since we started this in the offseason, that he could have had a role and an impact on this team, not as a starter, but as a player that comes off the bench and can impact the game in a positive way. It never ended up happening because Robbie could never get healthy. So like you said, hopefully he can get healthy and continue on with his professional career starting next season. It just won't be at Inter Miami. Briefly, Rafael Varane sounds like he's going to sign with a club in Italy. I know we talked about him mostly jokingly over the last couple of weeks because we both like him and we would have loved to see him in Inter Miami, but it never felt like the connection between his group and Inter Miami was particularly serious. And now we learn that he is likely going to stay in Europe at Como in Italy. So any comment on that before we get into the game?
It might not just be Como. There are quite a few teams that are actually interested in him from what I've heard. Roma might be showing some signs of thinking about getting him on. Honestly, I think Como's not the club for him, man. He needs to be in a club that's at least challenging for some sort of prestige, right? Whether it's the title, whether it's European Championship positions, at least some sort of competitiveness. It'll be sad to see him go to that team because I definitely know he can be an asset to Inter Miami and potentially win trophies here. So we've joked about him, but it feels a little bit painful to see him actually go to a different team and not on this Inter Miami roster, because he would have been the best defender in the MLS as soon as he signed on. Shame, but again, he's a great player. I really like him and wish him the best in his future.
Yeah, I agree. He's probably better than a club coming up from Serie B, but he gets to make his decisions and he's earned that. So good luck to him wherever he ends up. And I'm interested in seeing who Inter Miami might be able to attract with potentially that third DP spot, with that extra international roster slot, and maybe with Diego Gomez going, we might have some money. We'll see. I think we do need a center back, and so I'm interested to see who that might be. Let's get into the game. This was the starting lineup, and we did get it right after a lot of discussion in the pregame show, trying to figure out who exactly might be in what position, right? 6 midfielders in the lineup. And so figuring out how that was going to work was quite a challenge, but I think we ended up getting to the right spot, and it turns out we were. Back line of Ian Fray again at right back, Busquets stepping in at center back with Toto Avila suspended, Christoph Alba and Callender obviously where they're going to be, Campana as the 9, Gressel as a right winger, and Diego Gomez makes his return as a left winger. Redondo also making his return after a little bit more of a brief absence, and then Benjamin Kramaski and Yannick Bright rounding out the midfield. The more I looked at it during the pregame show, the more I liked it, and the more I was really excited to see what it could be, especially if it ended up being this exact formation, which it did. And I was really happy with what I saw from a lot of different spots on the field. But let's go back to pregame. How you're feeling?
This was one of those lineups where overwhelmingly everyone in the chat, myself and yourself, were all quite positive about this. Not just because of the formation and everything, but the personnel that was on the pitch. And it felt like every single person, maybe a couple of question marks here and there, but every single player on the pitch seemed to have been put in a position to succeed, or at least that's what our understanding of it was when we first saw it. And I was very, very happy with the way Tata picked this formation and these players, because there's so much potential here. There's youth, there's experience. As I mentioned, Sergio Busquets in the back line was obviously a question mark, and that was something I was looking out for. But overall, very positive, and I was definitely not nervous going into this game because of the lineup. I think that was something that I was really looking forward to. And, well, hindsight 2020, it turned out to be the perfect formation for us.
Yeah, I think based on what happened in the Columbus Crew game going back a week and a half, Yannick Bright really deserved to start. And so, but I was nervous he wasn't going to, because I thought Tata was going to rely on Redondo and Gomez and Busquets and Kramaski in the midfield. And so the fact that he was in the starting lineup made me really happy, and I think he earned that, and I think he showed why he earned that in last night's game. One of the big talking points I have for this episode is how Tata Martino set up these players to succeed individually. And so we'll save that conversation for a little bit. But anything else about the starting lineup before we just kick into the big moments?
One thing that I wanted to see during this game was how the front five play. And I remember mentioning this during our pregame show that it seems like when we were trying to figure out what the formation is, the reason we were struggling was because so many of these players can play in different positions. Gressel can play in the midfield. Kremaski can potentially play on the front line. Bright can play right back. Busquets, obviously, midfield, centre back. So I was interested to see how that plays out, especially in that front five. And we're going to talk about it, but the interchangeability that they showed and the versatility that we have in the front five is very positive for us going forward into the season. And that was something that was on show yesterday. And I would love to talk about it when we talk about the tactics, but that was definitely something I was keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Let's get into it, though. The first half an hour, a little bit slower. Nashville did create a few chances, but never particularly dangerous. You could tell early on that Inter Miami was going to press them high, but also when they crossed the midfield line, we were going to sit back and defend well. Hani Mukhtar and Yannick Bright got in a little bit of a battle. Bright responsible for man-marking him, and that was, I think, a big part of this game. But they did have a few chances. There was one break where Sam Surge sort of may have kept the ball from going out of bounds and then may have also fouled Sergei Christoph, but neither was called, and then he makes a break down that left flank and gets an opportunity on goal, but Drake Callender does make a relatively routine save, but it really kicks off for Inter Miami in the 30th minute. Jordi Alba sort of put a ball into Leo Campana, who laid it off for Julian Gressel, who was on that left side for some reason, but he definitely put a strike into it off the post. But man, would that have changed how we talked about Julian Gressel if he was able to put that one in?
I don't think it does. I have an award for him later because I thought he had a fantastic performance. Again, going back to the pregame show, I mentioned the best way that this team can potentially score, one of the ways is put the ball into Campana, which Jordi Alba did. Campana heading it down for either Diego Gomez or Kremaski, and then the runner coming in from the midfield trying to score. That's exactly what happened with this particular play because Campana controlled it down, put it in a position for someone in the midfield to try and shoot it, and Gressel caught it so sweetly, and I was a little bit, I thought that was going in just by how sweetly he had timed it. Unfortunately, the post came in the way and denied him, but fantastic play. We were looking like a team that knew exactly how we wanted to play this game. We were very solid in defense, and up until this point, it didn't seem like Nashville was creating too many clear-cut chances. Yes, they were playing around a little bit in dangerous areas, but it was always like either they were taking a shot from out wide or they were, Drake Callender had an easy save to make. So it seemed like a 50-50 game, but Miami started to get on top after, I think, the 15th to 20th minute.
Yeah, I kind of identified the 25th minute where I felt Inter Miami really started to control the game. And I thought those last 20 minutes, the first half, they were just dominating. Heading to the 36th minute, Campana whipped in a cross for Gressel. Again, Gressel gets a shot off, but it's a header. It's sort of right at Joe Willis, so not a scoring opportunity per se, but still was a sign of Inter Miami being in control and sort of creating opportunities like they wanted to. 40th minute, Diego Gomez off a header with a really big, off a corner with a really big header. Joe Willis makes a really nice save, but I thought that was a really nice reintroduction for Diego Gomez. And then on the ensuing corner, Julian Gressel puts the ball in for Ian Fray, who once again does exactly what he did last week against Columbus and gets a header into that back corner and puts Inter Miami up 1-0. What a moment.
It was basically identical, wasn't it? Identical to the goal that Ian Fray scored against Columbus. Julian Gressel, man, he's an asset on those corners and on the wing. He really knows how to put a ball in. And there were a couple of times that it was dangerous. As you mentioned, the Diego Gomez shot that was barely at the keeper. But it seemed like everything was clicking and the game plan was very well set. We were doing well defensively. Yes, there were instances that Nashville was getting in behind us, but it didn't seem like we were left too open because our players were able to retreat and recover very quickly. And then our front five, dude, they were all over the pitch. Kremaski was making some really good runs. I saw him make some good plays with the ball. Diego Gomez was doing what Diego Gomez does, and I was so happy to see him back on the pitch. He was so good. And then Campana, I feel like he could have had a little bit more contribution in that first half, but it just seemed like everything was clicking. And especially once we got over the front, the halfway line, it was just free flowing football. We were passing around, and I don't think you mentioned one instance that was potentially our first opportunity where Jordi Alba ran down the flanks, put in a really deep cross onto Gressel, and he had a first time volley in. And if he had caught that sweetly, that could have been another shot on target. But Gressel was, again, involved in a lot of the stuff that we were doing in the first half.
Yeah, there was another opportunity where Ian Fray breaks down that right side and
Yep.
whips in a low cross that Campana just can't get it right with his off foot. Definitely should have put that on target. But like I said, there was a nice 20-minute stretch where Inter Miami was doing what they wanted. They were executing on the game plan. They were doing exactly what they wanted to do going forward. And it ends up resulting in that first goal. And then just a few minutes later, it results in a second goal, another corner. This time it's cleared by Walker Zimmerman, but right to Jordi Alba, who sort of catches it off his chest and then smacks it on the volley and gets what we call in the business a golazo. It was incredible for Jordi Alba and also for Inter Miami. And I don't know if you saw Tata Martino smile right after, but that was the most I've ever seen Tata Martino smile. Big as could be, and it was a phenomenal goal. Jordi Alba also a little surprised, I think, because he was also smiling ear to ear. An incredible goal, and Inter Miami goes into the half up 2-0. Yeah, great goal.
Yeah, Alba doesn't score often, but when he does, it's always bangers. This is his first goal after his game against Montreal, I believe, when he scored that banger as well. Or no, he scored another one sometime in between as well, before his injury. But what a sweet strike. We needed that, actually. Going into the second half, having a 2-0 cushion was a lot better than going in with just one goal. And honestly, Inter Miami deserved it. We were creating those chances where some of them were much easier and we should have done better with them. But having someone like Jordi Alba to be able to make that difference with an absolute moment of magic is, again, he goes under the radar in some games and we take his talent for granted. But then when he does stuff like that, you're like, okay, yeah, I remember how good he used to be and how good you still are. And best left back in the league, man.
Yeah, he had a pass in the first half through two defenders to, I believe, Kremaski on the right side. And that was just like, no one else is making that type of pass. And it's sort of silly, the type of quality we have on this team. And that was a display of that. At halftime, though, how are we feeling? I felt on top of the world. I felt like we were going to run away with this game. And it felt like everything was clicking, especially because those last few minutes going to half were just so dominant. But did you feel that way? Were you expecting a little bit of a let off in the second half, or did you think we're going to win this game 3 or 4-0?
Yeah, like I didn't think we were going to win this game 3 or 4-0 because Nashville were dangerous. They had a lot of attacking talent in the pitch. Yes, we know they haven't had the output, but for me, as soon as they scored the first goal, it was whoever scores the next is going to win this game. So when it was a 2-1, I was a little nervous. Going into the half, I knew that we potentially need another goal to be a little bit more comfortable because they were linking up fairly well, and all it takes is one poor deflection of a shot from outside the box to then, for them to come back into the game. So there were instances that we were vulnerable that Nashville could have capitalized on, and they didn't in that first half. And after those 25 minutes, we just ran away with it. I did expect Nashville to come out a little bit more strong and, composed in front of the goal. And I was wrong. I mean, they didn't create much, honestly. And it should have been 2-0 for the entire game, but it was still in the balance, the game.
Yeah, I wasn't worried at all at halftime. And the reason is this is an excellent defensive team. And we talked about in the pregame show, they've given up 2 goals in 7 of their last 8 games combined. Aside from a game against New England where they gave up 2 goals, which one of them was an own goal, they've basically been lights out defensively. And the fact that Inter Miami could come in and sort of just establish themselves and create chance after chance after chance and get 2 goals, I thought was going to be a little bit of a confidence leak for Nashville, especially because we've already beaten them a number of times this year. And so I felt there was a real chance it was a here we go again type moment for them. And so credit to them at halftime for not giving in. I don't think we created nearly the number of quality chances in the second half as we did in the first half. And they hung around in the game. I don't know if they were ever going to score from the run of play. I don't think they were creating super dangerous chances like that. But still, the fact that we broke their defense early, I think, was a confidence booster for us and a confidence killer for them. Going into the second half, Inter Miami really slowed down the pressure. They were comfortable just letting Nashville control the game or control the ball. And that sort of really fed into what Inter Miami had in the personnel on the field. The first, skipping a few basic moments, the big one was in the 71st minute. There's a corner that is cleared by Busquets, but it's cleared to Tyler Boyd, who has a little bit of a bad touch, which prevents him from being able to take a shot. And so instead, he just does a little clever move to take a step to the right. I don't know if he's trying to draw a foul or if he's trying to create another shot. There wasn't another shot for him, but he gets lucky. Yannick Bright leans in a little too hard, does step on the foot, does get the foul, and Nashville is able to not equalize, but get one back in the 73rd minute when Hani Mukhtar converts on the penalty. 2-1. Any comments on that? It felt like a good call.
Yeah, at that time I was watching the game on mute, so I don't know what the commentary was saying, but I felt like the player was reaching for a foul. He knew what he was doing, but the moment Yannick Bright put that leg out, it was going to be lights out and the penalty was going to be given. I thought it was a little bit soft, but it could have gone either ways. If the referee gave it on the field, it would have stuck. If he didn't give it on the field, I would have been like, yeah, maybe it was a little bit, he was reaching out for it. But it is what it is, man. I don't blame Yannick Bright for it. It wasn't necessarily his fault. He was trying to put in a good block, but thankfully we weren't punished for it throughout the game. Even Drake Calder got very close to saving it, but Hani Mukhtar, fantastic penalty.
I know. I was just going to say that Calendar saves that if that penalty is not perfect. Especially if you go watch the replay from behind, you can tell there's about a foot and
Inches.
a half of space, and the ball goes through it because Drake Calendar shut down everything else. And so it did feel like there was a chance that this was going to be a turning point in the game. Nashville now had some momentum. The crowd was back in it. And all of a sudden, Inter Miami no longer felt as comfortable, as confident, and they no longer had the legs to be as, putting pressure on the back line and hitting on the counter quite as well. They weren't creating a ton of chances at that point in the game. And so it was an opportunity for Nashville to come out and try and get the equalizer with a lot of pressure. And especially once we got that 10-minute notice at stoppage time, the fact that it was 10 minutes was ridiculous. I don't know where that came from, but
I have no idea. I had my hands up and I was like, where has this referee conjured these 10 minutes out? Because it made no sense.
Yeah, I honestly thought we were going to get less time than the first half when we had 5 minutes. And so to see 10 was surprising to me, and they almost took advantage of it. Jordi Alba tries to clear a ball in the 92nd minute, knocks it right off of Foster Iago, who deflects it and creates his own opportunity, runs onto it, and from about 7 yards out, gets an opportunity, and my heart sank just a little bit. But then I remembered I have Captain Drake back there to make all of our troubles go away, and he does. He gets big, and he defends the shot, pushes it away, and that was really the last dangerous opportunity they created. Inter Miami wins 2-1.
By the way, that save is world class. It could have easily gone through his legs, but his positioning and his ability to get down with his leg and try and save that at close range, he made himself big and he got that save, man. He's one of the biggest reasons that we actually got the 3 points, because that should have been a goal for Nashville. Very, very unfortunate. I'm not blaming Jordi Alba by any means. It hits the player and it just falls really kindly for him. And can I just say, Anunga and Ahago, is that how you pronounce the name? Those two were such menaces, man. As soon as they came on, I was like, why are they everywhere on the pitch? And it felt like our players was just 2 steps behind the two of them. So I was very happy to see the back of this Nashville lineup, because if those two had come on at halftime, the game might have been completely different. Thank God for great calendar, man. Captain calendar indeed.
You know what's funny? The first pregame show we did for Nashville in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, I remember mentioning this guy, Foster Ayago, because he wasn't eligible to play in the MLS because they hadn't gotten the international roster slots for him or whatever it was. But he was eligible for the continental competition. And I was thinking this guy might be like a real difference maker for them in terms of being able to come off the bench and really change things up. And that's exactly what he ended up doing last night. Hasn't had the impact this season that maybe we thought he might at the beginning of the season or Nashville fans thought, but he is definitely a change of pace, and he's significantly more explosive and dangerous than Teal Bunbury. So exactly like you said, when he came on, it was a different game, and he made them more dangerous.
Could be your new Fafa Pico.
I don't know about that, but
anything else? Scored that, maybe yes. No, I think it was an interesting game, because the first 20 minutes you could see what our style was and what we wanted to do: sit back, counter Nashville, and then Nashville realized that we're not doing much with the ball and we're not able to play the way we want to. So Inter Miami started to dominate the ball after the 20th minute in the first half especially, and we were actually really good with the ball. We were flowing really well with the ball, winning the ball high up in the midfield and creating chances from there. And I remember the stat as soon as it came up on the screen. I think it was 48-52 to Nashville in the first 25 minutes. And then by the end of the half, we were like 54-46 in Miami's favor. So it wasn't like we were sitting back and countering. We were actually creating a lot of dominant chances in that first half. And we were the team on top in that first half. Second half, the script changed a little bit. I think we were a little bit under the cosh, especially once Hani Mukhtar scored that penalty and the substitutes came on for Nashville. They were a lot more energetic and they put us under a lot of pressure. But once again, this team has shown that every time they're under the cosh, under the pressure, and when we need to defend, we're actually really good at keeping a score to what it is. And defend deep is what we do. And we had Robert Taylor come on. I thought he should have come on a little bit earlier. He came on, I think, in the 70th minute. But once he was on, at least there was an outlet to get out from the pressure. And it seemed like it seems like a blueprint that we're now following. That happened against Philadelphia, happened against Columbus, and now it's happening against Nashville as well. So overall, it seems like this team has learned how they want to manage games. And the fact that we're getting results is a testament in itself that we're playing well and our style is working.
Yeah, and even though it may not have been pretty the whole time, it also felt like we were doing exactly what we wanted to do game plan wise. And so you got to appreciate that, and you get the result because of it. Let's talk about Nashville for a few minutes, because we've faced them a lot this year, but this team in particular was a little bit different. They did have Walker Zimmerman back, who I thought was phenomenal. Yeah. McNaughton, Godoy, Schaffelberg, some of the guys that were sort of the villains of previous games weren't there. And so it did feel a little bit different. Sam Sturridge on the wing. Ayago, who I think this was our first time seeing him, did make a difference. Anything about them that really stood out to you?
They were dangerous. They just weren't goal clinical. So it was like they were getting in the final third really well. And their runs were good. Hani Mukhtar and Sturridge were linking up well. I thought Bunbury was a little bit out of it. I don't think I noticed him throughout the game at all. But Hani Mukhtar was being kept quiet by Bright. But they were getting into spaces where they could have potentially been dangerous. But as we mentioned in the pregame show, the team who gets the first goal will actually go on to win this game. And it's going to be that kind of game. They struggled to score goals, man. Their entire play style is to make sure they keep it defensively solid in the back. And once we got those 2 goals in the first half, it was going to be difficult for them to come back. And that's exactly what happened. I don't think they were dangerous through the run of play in any means. Maybe on the set pieces, they could have done better. I think we defended them really well. And then they only scored through a penalty. So overall, we were the better team. And yes, we could have potentially been a little bit more, it could have been 2-2, but everyone performed across the board for us and we got the win, and we should have. So good for our team.
Yeah. they still have the interim coach. It's possible they're going to get their new coach as early as tomorrow night, maybe in the next week or so when the U.S. men's national team leaves the Copa America. But it was a very similar style from what we've seen from them in the past. And I didn't think that they were able to really do what they wanted to do. And I think Inter Miami's figured them out a little bit. And I also think that Ian Fray really changes how Inter Miami can attack exactly what Nashville does. I do want to talk about Walker Zimmerman for a second because he was really, really good, especially in that first half. I thought there was another 2 or 3 or 4 chances that he single-handedly sort of bodied the guy off or beat the man to the ball or got his head to the ball first. That was really impactful in this game. I thought Inter Miami could have won this game 3-1 if he wasn't on the field because he really did stop a few of our chances, and I wanted to give him credit for that.
Yeah, and he's so composed and calm. At no point did he feel like he was being beaten by any of our fresh legs, and he kept Campana quiet all game. So great player. Would definitely take him if we're looking for a defender, but I guess he's 31 now, and they're going to lose him for 6 weeks for the Olympics, which is going to be a big loss for them if that happens.
6 weeks. It won't be 6 weeks.
Yeah, but still, you don't know how their playoff hopes change once he's gone.
No, that's an excellent point because they are about to get this new coach, and if he builds his system around Walker Zimmerman, there's a very good chance he misses a couple games. Although I will say, I think most of the Olympics happens during Leagues Cup, so I don't know how many MLS games that'll be affected by that. But anything else on Nashville? I mean, Tyler Boyd had that one move, but otherwise I thought it was relatively quiet. Sam Surridge was okay in the first half, but other than that, not particularly impactful.
4 full podcasts dedicated to Nashville, and I can't wait to see the back of them. I hope we don't get them in the playoffs because I don't want to talk about them even once more. We've got the better of them 3 out of 4 times, and as far as a rivalry is concerned, it's dead and buried. We own that team. So let's move on, and hopefully we don't have to see them again this season.
Yes. Let's talk about one more Nashville player because it serves a purpose, and that's Hani Mukhtar. I do think he had at least he created one chance in the first 10 minutes of the game that Kristoff had to head away from danger. But as the game went on, he was getting more and more frustrated and taking himself out of position more and more. And that's because he was guarded by Yannick Bright, who, again, was just exactly what we've been saying he is all season, always in the right place, always at the right time. And yes, he deserves criticism for giving up a penalty. It was a silly mistake that you don't think is going to be repetitive, or at least I don't think. But aside from that one moment, I think he single-handedly shut down their most dangerous player in Hani Mukhtar. Let's talk about that for a second, because I think in my head, I didn't think Yannick Bright was going to start this game. I thought he was going to go with Busquets and Federico Redondo in the midfield. So once we saw the lineup, I was really happy. But clearly the reason he did start was to shut down Hani Mukhtar, and he did a really good job of that. And I think by extension, shut down most of what Nashville wanted to do, especially in that second half. And on top of that, he did most of it with a yellow card, right? I think he got a yellow card in the 30th minute or so. So an hour plus of defending a very dangerous player on a yellow card, and hats off to him because it was really, really impressive.
Yeah, he's playing years beyond what he should be playing as. He's in his rookie year, man. You can't expect him to play like this, and yet he's doing phenomenal. I'll go as far to say that he was the missing piece, and with him in this team, everything just seems to click so well. He kept Hani Mukhtar quiet throughout that game. Phenomenal defensively. He was doing all the running. I would love to see his heat map because it was phenomenal. He was all over the pitch at every single point in time. Yes, gave away that penalty. That was stupid. But again, I thought the player was reaching for it, and he was obviously going to try and block the ball. But as soon as the ball went away, he jumped over Bright's leg, yes, should have been a penalty, but I don't think that's a repetitive mistake in any means. And one thing I do want to point out that you had mentioned is how he made Diego Gomez and Redondo. Well, Diego Gomez is a phenomenal player regardless, but how he made Redondo better, you could see exactly.
Hold on.
Okay,
Because
we're
going to
getting
get to
there
that
yet.
too. We're going to get to
But
that
I
too.
will say I don't have an award for Yannick Bright, so I want to talk about him as much as we can, unless you do. So for me, he was bang on, exactly what we needed, and I would play this exact team for the next 4 games as long as everyone's healthy. Obviously, we can't have Ian Fray coming in every single game, but this setup is exactly how we should be playing without Messi and Suarez, with Yannick Bright in the center as that linchpin.
Well, this is what I want to talk about, because I think Yannick Bright unlocks what Tata Martino wanted to do from the beginning of this season, and here's why. And I don't know if he can do this with Chelo Wigan on the field. Ian Fray is very special in terms of his ability to get forward, but by putting Yannick Bright in the midfield, you allow your fullbacks to get up the field and be dangerous in a way that we couldn't do beforehand, right? Remember a month ago, we were talking about how the defense has improved because our fullbacks have been more conservative, and Franco Negri is not bombing up as much. Chelo Wigan has been more conservative in his positioning. And the reason we were solid and improving was because we had a real back four playing as a defensive back four. But when you put Yannick Bright on the field, all of a sudden, those fullbacks have way more license to get up and be creative and join the attack. And especially with Ian Fray, who is better at doing that than Chelo Wigan, as far as I can tell. And obviously, Jordi Alba is world-class at that. All of a sudden, you now get the fullbacks involved in the attack much more than you ever could before if you wanted to keep that solid defense. And I have stats that show why Yannick Bright's so good defensively, but we can get to that later. He just allows the fullbacks to be a part of the offense in a way that they couldn't before and when he's not on the field. And I think that fundamentally changes how we can attack defenses. And we saw it in this game. Nashville has been so narrow every time they've played us, deep and narrow. And it's been very effective, especially last season against Messi and Suarez and the guys that like to operate in the central parts of the pitch. But when you have Yannick Bright, you can get those fullbacks way up the pitch, and then they can exploit those wide areas, which pulls the defenders wider. And when Messi does come back, it's going to give him way more space to operate in the middle of the pitch. I love how this team's coming together.
Yeah, you were bang on about everything you just said there. I think as soon as our wing backs push forward, Ian Fray is a fantastic ball carrier. 100% agree. I think he's better than Wigan at that. Jordi Alba, we already know. But when both of them push forward, we only have Christoph and in this case Sergio Busquets as our 2 center backs trying to stop any transitions.
False.
But
we also have Yannick Bright.
Wait, yes, exactly. But in a normal situation, when Yannick Bright's not playing, we only have our 2 center backs trying to stop any counter transitions, right? As soon as Yannick Bright comes in, he can play in the back 3 when both fullbacks are forward. He can play in a back 4 he can play in a back 3 when one fullback is bombing forward. He can cover for another fullback and keep it a back 4. He can play in different positions, be that front cover in front of the defense, try and buffer the transitions. And he's so good in terms of his athleticism and covering ground. He's deceptively quick, first of all. There were some instances where I think I saw him cover either Hani Mukhtar or Sam Surridge on the wings. And he caught up with Sam Surridge, even though he was further back. And he's really quick, and he can actually cover a lot of ground in a very short span of time. And by doing that, you just become so much more defensively stable because then you can keep up with any transitions happening. Completely agree, man. He just unlocks everything in front of us and it's just so much better. And then secondly, at one point that I wanted to mention that you said was how we utilize the wings in this particular game. We love to play through the middle when Messi's in the game because that's how he builds up. He takes the ball in the center of the park and then tries to play back and forth tiki-taka in the middle of the park. But that becomes really difficult when it's all congested and when the opposition is playing narrow. And we've been screaming for someone to keep that width throughout the first half of the season, right? I think the only player who does that effectively is Robert Taylor because Wigan can't do that. He's afraid to bomb forward. Alba does that from time to time, but again, exposes himself back. When you have Yannick Bright, You don't need to worry about any of that. You can play all two positions centrally and through the flanks at the same time without the worry of a transition. And that's exactly what we've been missing.
Yes, and it makes me really excited. And so going back to what you said about this is what the lineup should look like when up until Messi and Suarez comes back, I want to see Yannick Bright as a DM when Messi comes back, especially if Ian Fray can be on that as a right back, because I think that is a really interesting formula, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like. Going to what Chidi mentioned, and this is something I wanted to talk about, Busquets and Christoph as a back two with Yannick Bright protecting them. You don't have the same recovery pace, of course, but because you have Yannick Bright in the midfield, you don't need it quite as much. And then by putting Busquets and Christoph back there, you actually become a much better passing team out of the back. You give Drake Callender more opportunities to get the ball at the feet of players that are good on the ball, right? Putting Busquets in that back line makes you much more dangerous building out of the back and defensively solid if it means it opens up that sixth role for Yannick Bright, who, at least at this point, is better in those situations than Busquets defensively. I really love what that back trio up the spine of Bright, Christoph, and Busquets does, and I thought it worked really well in yesterday's game.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And Christoph's not a slouch on the ball either. He can play well. It's just his pace is, a little bit off. Sergio Busquets is fantastic. You can't press him. You just cannot press him. And when the players did try to press him from Nashville, we were getting out very easily and into the midfield, and we had slick passes from the back to the front. With Aviles, that doesn't necessarily happen as quickly, and we tend to play around a little bit to then get to our front line. With Busquets, it's just one pass and we're in, and that's so much more effective with this particular lineup. And I know Aviles is going to come back, Busquets is going to move back into the midfield, but I just love the balance of this team, man. It was so good. So good.
Here's the thing. If you take out Julian Gressel, who's playing at right wing, and you put in Lionel Messi, and you play almost the same lineup, you are creating so many options going forward, but you're keeping yourself solid defensively, and you can build out of the back. Everyone feels more comfortable. Getting to the point that I wanted to stop you a few minutes ago at is I think Tata Martino did a really good job of setting players up to succeed in the way that they like to operate. And he did that by putting personnel around them that accents or supplements what they do well. For example, giving Drake Callender a couple of really great passing outlets right in front of him, I think makes Drake Callender more comfortable on the ball. Busquets playing at center back, he's out of position. Putting a really strong defensive midfield in front of him to protect him really helps him out. Ian Fray likes to bomb forward, not as, we'll see what he's become defensively, but by putting him out there, you take away some of that responsibility and you protect him with Redondo and Yannick Bright. Putting players in positions to succeed by putting players around them that helps them and covers up their weaknesses and helps them accentuate their strengths. He did a really good job of that today. It was Redondo, who I'm sure you want to talk about, but also Gomez, Ian Fray, Drake Callender, Sergio Busquets, all the way around. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, you completely nailed it. You obviously mentioned the defense, but even for the midfield, what having that number 6 does is I don't see Redondo as a 6. I'll be honest. I see him as a similar player of Sergio Busquets' ilk. He's very similar to Sergio Busquets in the sense that he's really good on the ball, great passing. Some of the passing that he had yesterday was fantastic. At one point, he was the highest passer in the game, I think, up until the 60th minute. He is not as athletic. Yes, he can cover ground, but he's not as quick. But one thing that he lacks compared to Sergio Busquets is his ability to be press resistant, and sometimes that can be a little bit iffy. Once he builds that into his game, it's going to be perfect. But up until that comes into play, I don't see him as a 6 because he can't be that defensive cover for our back line, or at least not on this team. And yesterday's game proved it, that he is so much better when he plays as that number 8. And he's actually really commanding. He was setting players around him up. He was asking for the ball, raising his hand, being vocal. I didn't think at any point he was in a bad position by any means. And that was half to do with him, obviously, but also to do with the fact that he was aware that there was a defensive midfielder right next to him who's going to basically do all his defensive dirty work. The way this team was set up, and the commentators mentioned this, is our back four and Yannick Bright were like pegged into a hole. Obviously, the fullbacks were running back and forth, but they had a fixed position. And then our front five were all over the place, scattered around. At one point, Kramaski was on the right side, then left side. Gressel was on the right side at one point, left side at another point. So they were all over the place. And that worked really, really well. Redondo played a really good game. Gomez did what Gomez does best. And that was only because our back five and back six with Drake Calder were fixed in one place. And that helped our team build out from the front. So yeah, long story short of what you mentioned, I think this team needs a defensive midfielder. And the fact that Yannick Bright is doing such a good job is phenomenal on his part.
And we've said glowing things about Yannick Bright. And again, it's not just that it's Yannick Bright. It's just this team doesn't have any player of that ilk. And so, but it's been calling out for it for much of the season. And so to have that player step in and be awesome is really great. And for Redondo, who, as you mentioned, isn't quite that, to give him that protection and allow him to do the things he wants to do, I think is only going to be good for his confidence and make him feel like he's really getting into rhythm. And I hope that pays dividends, even when moving forward, he might not have Yannick Bright behind him, because I think he's been trying to find himself since he got here, and it might be starting to happen. And I think Yannick Bright can be a big part of that. Same thing with Julian Gressel, who we've seen played this right wing spot ever since Messi went to Copa America, and he's been phenomenal. Really, really impressive. He had another assist last night, had a few opportunities to score, had another opportunity to get another assist off of the Diego Gomez header. He has been transformed as a player over the last couple games, and I think getting an opportunity to get on the bench and come off was part of it, but I think just finding an ideal role for him is also part of it, and the biggest factor, which is exactly what Inter Miami's done since we've moved him up the field and given him a little bit less defensive responsibility.
Yeah, before this game, I was actually of the same mind as you, and I still am. He's been played in positions that suit him the best. The right wing spot is where he shines. He's not an out-and-out central midfielder. He likes to operate on that wing side. So whether he's playing as a right side midfielder or a right winger, to give him space on that side to be able to send crosses in and dictate play from that side. In slower games, it works really, really well. When we need to play slow and when we need to build out on counters, he's really good in transitions as well. One thing that I think stood out for me was he was playing with confidence yesterday. It seemed like he wanted to get involved. Up until this point, for Gressel, the issue has been that he seems lost. It doesn't seem like he's fitting into this team, and he always seems to be away from the general run of play, and he seems to be on the outside of it. Now it seems like he wants to get involved in there. He's in there getting on the end of balls, getting on the end of headers. He's not afraid to venture out a little bit to the middle, playing on the left side sometimes, getting the ball, asking for the ball. So that was missing from his game, and a big credit to Tata for turning that around for Gressel, because you can easily just give up on a player and be like, you know what, you're not performing, you're going to sit on the bench, and we have too many options in the squad to be able to replace you. But he stuck with him, and he did exactly what his man management was fantastic. And Gressel is now a transformed player, at least so far.
Yeah, and moving forward, I think if Messi has to miss a game because he is unavailable, he's on international duty, whatever it is, I think Gressel has to be the right wing choice. And I think this style of play that we've played over the last couple of games has to be the default, de facto way of playing if Messi's not available. And because it works excellently, and it really fits our personnel. One positive conversation I want to have and one negative conversation I want to have, but to start off, just to go to the substitutes and have a quick conversation about Tata Martino. 67th minute, Ryan Sailor comes in, Ian Fray goes out. Makes sense because Ian Fray is on a minutes restriction. Ryan Sailor, I think it doesn't provide what Ian Fray does going forward, but defensively has been solid, and he is a big body that helps on set pieces. 79th minute, maybe a little bit later than expected, Robert Taylor does come in for Diego Gomez. And then in the 94th minute, Borgelin and David Ruiz come on for Campana and Kramaski. Redondo does go the distance. Anything about that you felt was worth a conversation?
No, I think maybe Taylor could have come back a little bit, come on the pitch a little bit earlier. I thought he was the much needed fresh legs that once he came on, he looked sharp, he looked ready to go. The rest of it was fine. I wasn't complaining about the subs. Borgelin coming on was completely fine for me. The 10 minutes added extra, I was surprised Redondo was able to actually go through to the 100 minutes. Thank God he didn't have an injury. But overall, I think it was well managed as a game. Exciting times that, yes, we have Ian Fray in right back, but when we want to replace him and when Wigan's healthy, I don't see that as a drop-off. I think that would be completely fine. Wigan's obviously a lot more potent defensively compared to Ryan Saylor and can potentially have an offensive output as well. So one area that we were always concerned about asking for that centre-back who can also play a right-back, we have that now. Who do we sign this summer? Do we need to sign anybody this summer? But yeah, it's overall, I think the subs were fine. No issues there.
Yeah, I thought they were fine in order to get the result in this game. I guess there's a question of whether you want to do something earlier in order to keep guys fresh because we have 2 more games this week. But I also think getting that first win is the most important, right? Because you set yourself up to be successful moving on. If you do something to risk 3 points in that game, then you've already are behind the 8 ball on what you want to do on this road trip. Okay, you want the bad conversation first or the good conversation first?
Always the bad news first, man. Let's talk about the bad news first.
There was a drop-off in the second half. We weren't as aggressive, and we went into half, I felt, dominating the game, creating lots of chances, really putting the pressure on. And I know we were up 2-0, but I would have really liked to see us in the first 20 minutes that second half, especially before we started making subs, go out and get that third goal. And we weren't as aggressive. It definitely felt like we were ready to just sit back and kill the game, which not for the first time this year we've seen us give up a goal when we were winning 2-0 and then had to really sweat out the last 20 minutes or so. I guess my question is, what's the deal with that?
That could be instructions from Tata to try and be a little bit more conservative.
No, it definitely is. But why?
I don't know. Maybe he thinks that this team, we have a lot of minutes to play over the next few weeks, and I don't know, it's a little bit high risk in terms of pushing forward and then maybe exposing yourself at the back to try and get that third goal. So Tata's like, you know what, we're going to be more defensively solid and we're not going to be as adventurous and we're going to try and get a goal when the opportunity arises. That's potentially the reasoning behind that. Also, I can understand why there's been a drop-off, at least in the physical sense, because it also felt like a few of the players were huffing and puffing by the end of it. And the defensive work in the first half was quite good, and you just get tired over time. I think the best way to get over this hump that we have in that second half is to get some of the subs in earlier, because these are young players. They run a lot. Kramaski runs a lot during a game. Redondo has just come back from injury. For him to play 100 minutes makes no sense. Diego Gomez, same. He's a physical machine, but you can't expect him to come back from an injury and play those long minutes. So I would have expected some of the subs to come in a little earlier. But yeah, the defensive drop-off is understandable to an extent because we play a lot of games and these players are still young. They exert energy a lot more. Sergio Busquets doesn't need that. He knows exactly how to conserve his energy, when to use it, when not to use it. So he's fine.
It's not an energy conversation to me. It's more of a like, what do we want out of these next 20 minutes or this next 15 minutes or whatever? Because here's my concern. If something happens where you give up the lead and all of a sudden it's a draw, you are so out of the mindset of being able to go out and get the win because you've been so defensive for 40 minutes, right? There was that opportunity in the 92nd minute where Iago had an opportunity at point blank range. If he converts on that, Inter Miami doesn't have the mentality or the players on the field to try and make a comeback in those last 8 minutes and get the win. And Nashville does because they're all attack, all the momentum's in their favor, right? You're really in trouble. And so for me, I would love to see us get a third goal and really put the game out of reach before we sit back. And also, the defensive dirty work is not necessarily easier on the lungs or on the heart, because it's still a lot of running and a little bit more thankless, and you have less control over it. So I guess I just don't love that, but I'm really nitpicking because we've won a lot of games on the road.
I think you're right. It's a little pessimistic because we've seen it a few times now where we go up and then we sort of let the foot off the gas, and that has to be an instruction from Tata, right? You don't want to give away a 2-goal lead in a stupid manner by leaving ourselves too exposed at the back. That penalty didn't help because otherwise we would have been 2-0 and it would have been completely fine. But that's how you manage a game, right? You got to figure out situations.
But we've seen that before, right? Almost the exact same thing happened against Vancouver, where we give up a penalty in like the 70th minute, and then we really have to suffer for the last 25 minutes. So I feel like if we can put the game away by the 65th minute, that would, of course, be ideal. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, to this point, I'm not sure if I agree with this because we created plenty of opportunities to actually take the lead. Campana had a miscued shot right in front of the goal where he should have had at least on target. Gressel scored a beautiful volley that should have gone in, hit the post. There were a couple of headers before the first goal where we had the opportunity to score. So I don't think we are overstating how well we played. There were definitely chances that we created and were able to score. But yeah.
The happy thing that I wanted to talk about is our record on the road. And I saw someone put it in the chat earlier, Skrilla. Inter Miami has 23 points on the road so far this season. They've played 10 games. They have 7 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss on the road. It's an incredible mark. All of those numbers are in MLS play only. Of course, we had some less positive results in the Champions Cup, but it's been phenomenal. They have the mentality to go on the road and feel like it's nothing. They have the quality to go on the road and feel like it's nothing, even without Messi, Suarez, and Matthias Rojas, even without Chelo Wigan, even without Nico Fray. Like it's no big deal. Their last 3 road games without those players, they've gotten win, 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 all 2-1, beat Columbus at home as well. But this team has a chance to do something historic on the road. Skrilla puts it up 32 points. DC United did that in 2018 or 2019, maybe, on their way to being the Supporter Shield champions that year. What Inter Miami is on pace for is 39 points, which is would be by far the most all time, especially in the win, draw, loss era of MLS. Anything about Inter Miami just being so good on the road, feeling like nothing gets in their way, and being able to adjust their style. I think maybe a month ago now, or 3 weeks ago, we played Atlanta and St. Louis, and it felt like we reverted to a different style of play that left us a little bit more vulnerable. But going right before that against Vancouver, and then since then against Philadelphia, against Columbus, against Nashville last night, it was a style that I think can be really effective on the road where you can go out and get results. How are you feeling about this team on the road? Or is it just this team's so good it doesn't matter?
I think those St. Louis and Atlanta games were good litmus tests for Tata Martino to realize that we can't necessarily play the same way on the road as we can at home. It's been a phenomenal run. I don't expect this to continue because
I do.
Any other team, if Cincinnati is 2-1 down against us and they have those chances that Nashville did, they probably put us away. But it's the best way that we can play with the personnel that we're missing, with the people that we have on the pitch. This is the best way that we can play, and we can now say that we know how to get results without having a full strength team, and that's a mentality issue, right? Like, we are mentally so strong on the road. It's like, yes, we know how to play, we're going to execute our plan, and we are going to take all 3 points away. It's a habit, man. You continue playing, you continue getting that experience on the road. The more you win, the more you want it, and we made a habit out of it. We've now fixed a style of play that we want to use, and that's really working for us. As long as we stay mentally strong, we're going to get the results that we want. But it's not going to be easy.
Dude, Charlotte, we have an opportunity against Charlotte on Wednesday. I think we should feel really good about going into that game. And then Cincinnati next weekend. if we can get 4 points from those 2 games or more, we're going to break the record, and it's going to be relatively comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else about this game before we get on to awards?
No, man, it was a really gritty second half, really good first half, but fully deserved by Inter Miami. And at this point, I'm just like, Tata Martino, if you continue to pick all these right players in the right positions, I might have to bow down to you as the best tactician the world of football has ever seen.
I know you said you turned off the announcers at one point, but they did mention at some point that Tata Martino is now in the running for MLS Coach of the Year, largely based on what we've done without Messi. And I had to giggle at that because there have been times where we've been quite critical of him, but he has been absolutely on point. And we did a podcast before this run of games started where we talked about Tata Martino having a huge role and also having a huge opportunity to establish his credentials and his tactical ability. And I think he's done an excellent job so far.
100% agree.
Okay, let's get into awards. As always on this show, 6 awards we give out. 1 Inter Miami Man of the Match, 1 Heron That Flew North, and 2 individual awards each. And because you got to go against the Columbus Crew, it is my turn to give out the Inter Miami Man of the Match, and I am giving it to Jordi Alba. A banger of a goal, ended up being the difference, but he created a bunch of opportunities. He was really good in terms of building out of the back and getting out of pressure when Nashville did try and come get the ball, especially in the second half. He created a couple opportunities in the first half, and that banger is just in my head. So Jordi Alba, man of the match. Write it down.
No complaints with that, man. Jordi Alba was due one, that's for sure. He was due a good performance. I mean, yes, he's had some good performances, but he was due a man of the match performance, and what a way to bring it up. That goal was phenomenal and much needed as well. If he didn't score that, we could have potentially gone into the second half conceding that penalty and maybe even losing this game. So great moment, fantastic moment of magic, and you don't doubt his ability at all. He's phenomenal. I know we've mentioned this, that when Negri was in the squad and Alba was out injured, we looked a lot more defensively solid, but I don't think I'd forego Alba for any other player. He's just too good, and some of the passes that he does, gets out of pressure from the left side really well, is just phenomenal, and I love seeing him play. What a player.
Yeah. He had that one really nice pass in the first half through 2 defenders that is also stuck in my mind. He is, I think, going to have a bigger impact the more we play Yannick Bright. And we had this conversation already, and we had it mostly about Ian Fray, but the same applies to Jordi Alba. He's going to have more freedom to get forward, and he has the talent to make huge impact when he does. So I'm really excited about Jordi Alba moving forward. He's been great all season, and so I think he definitely deserved the man of the match. Okay. It is your turn to give out the Heron That Flew North. I apologize. For those that don't know, the Heron That Flew North is our award for the player doing the wrong thing. Florida Herons do not fly north for the winter. In fact, they don't fly anywhere. So if you find them flying north, they are doing the wrong thing. Tell me, who does that apply to from this game on Inter Miami?
I have a couple of players in mind, and my pick might be a little bit harsh, and you may disagree with me, but I'm going to go for Campana. I thought he had some really good chances in that first half to try and put this game away and make it a 3-0. He got into good positions, but other than that, he was largely anonymous throughout this game. Could have done better. He had a few trampoline touches that bounced off and gave them an opportunity to catch us in the transition. And he should have been a little bit more effective, but maybe I'm being too critical for a striker who was up against Walker Zimmerman. I'm not sure. But it was either him or Christoph, and I didn't want to pick Christoph because I thought he was decent, not too bad. Maybe Kramaski, but I thought Kramaski was really good. So it's a harsh pick, man. It's a really, really harsh pick, but I'm being critical a little bit too much, but that's my choice.
I understand, and I don't have a problem with it. I did see some criticism of Leo Campana. I will defend him because I didn't think anyone had a bad game, and so I don't want him to feel bad about this.
I agree, yeah.
He had 2 assists for Julian Gressel lined up that Gressel didn't convert on. He would have gotten an assist on the Gressel one that went off the post. He put another really nice cross into Gressel that Gressel headed sort of just high. And And then he also had the shot that led to the corner that led to Jordi Alba's goal. So he was really involved in that 20-minute part of the game where we were really in control, and I thought we were really doing well. But you're right. He definitely had some bad touches. Definitely was put the ball off target a couple times. He also had that one moment, and we haven't mentioned it yet, where he gets hurt or hit. He like rolls his ankle or whatever and has to go down.
Yep.
Where Kramaski puts the ball back to him, and if he doesn't roll his ankle there, he is wide open for what could have been the game sealer. So I thought he was just a little bit away from like having a really impactful game, but none of them came off. And so for those reasons, I think this is a fine award. Doesn't get the goal that gets him to tie Gonzalo Higuain as well. So got to dock him for that.
So close.
I know. Hopefully I'm really happy he came back healthy though, because I'm not sure what Inter Miami would do if we lost him before getting Luis Suarez back. I don't know if we would feel comfortable putting Schneider Borgelin out there from the get-go. And so he's really important to the team right now. And so even though he did have some bad touches, I still think he's really important.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, my first award is the Brethman Award.
Well, this obviously goes to Yannick Bright, because as soon as he's in that midfield, we go from being stale and slightly decayed to fresh and minty, where everyone's just smelling great and playing well.
No, but I like your line of thinking. This goes to Drake Callender, because Drake Callender
is stole my award, man.
He's minty fresh under pressure. And what is one of the most famous brands of breath mints? Lifesavers. Lifesavers. And in the 92nd minute, he was a lifesaver. He was very good in the entire second half. He had some saves in the first half. He was, of course, the really big save in the 92nd minute, but I think a little uncharacteristically was coming out for crosses and being in control of the high game in a way that we haven't always seen. I thought he was really good in that final stretch, and I thought he was excellent. He was, to me, under consideration for man of the match, not just because of the save, but he really looked comfortable and calm, and he's really filling in that Captain Drake motto with that armband. I thought he was really good in this game, and I thought he's been really good over the last couple.
I had an award for him as well. I called it the Venus Flytrap Award, because he was catching everything that was in the air. I was really surprised. And I know some of the people mentioned that it didn't seem like he had any different of a game than normally he does, and he's just really good. But those moments stood out for me. There were a couple of moments where he just came out all the way to the front to just grab the ball in the air. And I was like, oh, damn, okay. He's controlling his box. He's not letting any of the crosses come in. And that was really well done. He was very commanding, very confident, and very sure of himself. And even when he came out to have that great save, which basically, as you mentioned, was the lifesaver. Was that Iago who scored or who tried to score? Yeah. So important, man. Absolutely important. And it seems like he's getting some of his confidence back. I don't even know if he ever lost his confidence, honestly. Maybe we're just speculating it, Ian. But he was very commanding, and Captain Drake is the perfect moniker to give him, because, yeah, he led from the front or the back in this case.
No, but he's really lived into and grown into that captain motto, and I really appreciate that. And we talked about how he's the oldest member of Inter Miami in terms of longevity, and to see him succeed and really get back into his groove is awesome. And I think it's been longer than just last night. I think it's been about a month now where he's been really good, but I don't think we've given him any awards because we just keep winning and we appreciate our bangers. So giving one to Drake Callender felt appropriate.
And he almost saved a penalty.
Yeah. His numbers on penalties aren't particularly good, but I feel like he always goes the right way. And he just has come up against some really great, well-taken kicks. Okay. What's your first award? Saur,
Okay, I've got a few awards, but I'm going to go with the Red Bull on Ice award.
Okay. The Red Bull on Ice. Of course, everyone knows Red Bull is an energy drink. So this has to go to a player that is full of energy, always running, which means it's either Kramaski, or Diego Gomez. And because it's been on ice for quite some time and you're finally taking it out, it's obviously going to Diego Gomez, who you felt had a great performance.
Your explanation was completely left field, but you got the player right. So I'm going to give it to you, man. It is Diego Gomez.
Is that not why it's Diego Gomez?
No, it's not why it's Diego Gomez. But I will say it's very close, though, because it was a play on words. I did mention Red Bull on ice for the energy drink being on ice. But for me, I wanted to take this moment to remember, and basically Diego Gomez is like a bull when he runs. If anyone's seen him run, he hunches over, he powers through, and it's like he's a meaty, chunky boy who just powers through everybody else. And it seems like he's on ice because he just glides through it. So it's literally like a bull who's skating on ice. Hence the wordplay. But the fact that we do these awards is because Grayson had a fantastic explanation to it. And yeah, it works out. Diego Gomez, the Red Bull on ice. I thought he was really good. Showed flashes of his great form that we've seen in the past. And for me, we've really missed him. And I'm glad that we were able to see him once more in that Inter Miami shirt, because he had a few moments where he was running straight through the defenders, getting into good positions and putting in balls, and he was just doing what Gomez does best, and I've missed him as a player.
Yeah, I've missed him too. I didn't think this was like one of his really dominant performances. Right at the end, right before he got hurt, especially against Sporting Kansas City, he was phenomenal. And I thought he was really good in that Nashville game that he got hurt, up until the injury. He wasn't quite that level, but he was still really good. I just really, really appreciate what he is as a player. And like you said, it's unclear how much longer he'll be with us. I think at most 4 more games, unless something falls through with his transfer, because he is going to go to the Olympics with Paraguay. And I think the players will leave for that probably after the game on the 20th against the Chicago Fire, but potentially even before that. Like this week might be our last week with Diego Gomez. I would love to see a sort of vintage performance from him. And yeah, it was good to see him on the field, get 80 minutes, not 45. Right? It looks like he's healthy. It looks like he'll be ready to go 90 by next weekend. And I really appreciate that.
All right, your turn.
Okay, my second award. Let me get my little notes for award. I'm giving the Loose Change Award.
Ooh. Who have we not talked about? Loose change. This is obviously... I have no idea, man. Is this to... we've done Jordi Alba. It's Ian Fray, obviously, because he's invaluable.
Where do you get Ian Fray from?
You always need loose change in your pocket. You always need loose change in your pocket to try and buy something. If you go to the grocery store and you need like a pack of crisps or something, you always need loose change for that. And Ian Fray is one of those players that you always need in your team to be able to get a result out. So I'm just waffling at this point, and I'm asking for you to save me embarrassment any further. Please tell me who this is.
Here's the thing about loose change. If it's on your desk, it's kind of just in an annoying place, right? No one wants loose change on their desk. No one wants loose change on the car seat. No one wants loose change on the counter. It doesn't really belong anywhere. And so it always winds up in the same place, and that's in your pocket. And that's exactly what happened to Hani Mukhtar, who couldn't find where he belonged in this game. And so he ended up in Yannick Bright's pocket. The Loose Change Award goes to Yannick Bright, who I think, especially for the last 80 minutes of the game, just shut down Nashville's best player, and in a way that no 22-year-old super draft pick should be able to do. Great performance from him again, and he was phenomenal.
I feel like we need to put a cap on how many times we talk about this player, because we're going to soon become the Yannick Bright podcast, and it's not a good look for us. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this player. He's so mature for his age, and he knows exactly how to play simple football, effective football, and do his job. He's a role player. He knows what this team needs from him, and he does that job perfectly to the T. Yes, at some points the change fell out of his pocket, but then he picked it up from the ground and put it back in it. So he didn't have a perfect performance by any means, but without that penalty, it would have been a damn near perfect performance from him. So phenomenal player, great maturity, and hopefully he can just go upwards and onwards. And at this rate, I could see him, being the starter for this team next season.
I'd be frustrated if he doesn't start on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say.
Fantastic quote. Before you move on, Anton's just said, we need to start a morning podcast called The Bright Spot. I think that should be on me. I'm going to start thinking about it. Scotty already has his morning podcast. This should be mine. Anything and everything to do with Yannick Bright will be discussed on that podcast.
Here's what I'll say. I brought this up last time, but that was 10 days ago against Columbus. Inter Miami doesn't give up goals when Yannick Bright is on the field. Since his debut game, and now the number's 404 minutes, Inter Miami has allowed 1 goal from the run of play while Yannick Bright is on the field in over 400 minutes. And that was the goal against from the Columbus Crew, Cucho Hernandez, who is one of the best goal scorers in the league. 400 plus minutes, 1 goal allowed from the run of play from Inter Miami. I think probably you have to give him, dock him a little bit for getting a penalty that also led to a goal. But we are so stout defensively when he's on the field. Our center backs have protection. The rest of our midfielders have protection. Our fullbacks have protection and also the ability to get forward and freedom to get forward. He transforms this team. And we've been talking about the need for a player like this all season. And when he's not on the field, we give up 3 goals to St. Louis and we give up 3 goals to Atlanta. And when he is on the field, we shut teams down, especially in the run of play. A few penalties have made that mark look a little bit less impressive if you look at overall goals, but he has been so good and he transforms the team. Play him more.
Are we overstating how important he is to this team?
No. And it's not even just him. It's what he does on the field. Like if you put in Dixon Arroyo, I think he would have a similar effect, but this team has been calling out for a player like this, and he is the only one that can fill that role. And that's why he needs to play more.
Yeah, but he's doing that role so well. Well. The fact that it's not just the fact that he's another body in the midfield. He is a body that does his job perfectly. And yeah, let's not rant more about him because we can go on and on about Yannick Bright. I will say, though, he was one of the first players in preseason that we said we want to look out for. And Scotty pointed him out in one of our first podcasts that we did, that this is a player to look out for. Took him a while to get signed on to the Inter Miami first team, but boy, his trajectory has been upward and upward and upward. And now at this point, I think he's undroppable, at least from my perspective. We'll see what Tata thinks about it.
I don't know if you saw this, but, also about Bright, I love the fact that Tata Martino has found a way to get all of these midfielders on the field at the same time in a way that also makes sense and is effective, right? 6 midfielders on the field at the same time last night. But during the broadcast, they talked about how one of the announcers spoke with Tata Martino about Yannick Bright and how Tata said it's been a real surprise and a real bright spot, excuse the pun, that he's become this player. But I think that just goes to show that even the coaching staff was a little reluctant to trust him at first, but they see it just like we do. And I think he's just going to get more and more opportunities because he's been so good. Okay, we've talked enough about Yannick Bright in this podcast. Tell me who your second and final award or what the award is.
I'm going to call this the Ball on a String Award.
The ball in a string or on a string?
On a String Award.
Okay. The ball on a string. Oof. Sergio Busquets, because whatever you do, the ball sticks to him like glue.
Yeah, kind of, but also like his passes are just so accurate and phenomenal. Yeah. He had 100% pass accuracy. That's mad. That is mad. From the deep in a center-back position, he was dictating play. Honestly, turn him into a center-back, man. That's why I wanted to bring him up as a conversation point. Yeah, we don't need a center-back as Sergio Busquets is playing that role. Okay, yeah, he's not the most athletically gifted, but his IQ is so high that he doesn't need to have that athleticism. Yes, maybe against teams that have pacey wingers, we might suffer. But at least in these games where we need to sit back a little bit, him dictating play from that back is like having a midfielder in that centre back line, and it's just phenomenal the way he plays, man. He just makes everything flow, and you can't press him, as I mentioned. You just can't press him.
Yeah, I agree. And I would like to see him more there. We've seen Tata Martino push him into the back line in possession just to help in the build out so many times this year, because sometimes we struggle with Fray when he was back there, or Aviles and Calendar. These guys aren't phenomenal at playing out of the back. When you put Busquets just back there, it A, allows you to put in another midfielder, but B, it makes your back line incredibly dangerous, pushing the ball forward. And maybe dangerous isn't the right word, but effective pushing the ball forward. And it opens up so much for what you want to do as a team. And it starts from the very back. And Busquets back there is the best we have at it. And he's good defensively. Like, he knows where to, like, he understands the position, and center back is a nuanced position. So you need to understand timing and positioning and communication with your teammates and all those things. And he has it. So I would also like to see, like, moving to Wednesday, we play Charlotte. I would like to see the same lineup, just Cello in for Ian Fray, because I don't want to risk Ian Fray. I don't think he should play in that game. And maybe the same exact lineup, and I would feel really good about that, even though Tota Aviles is back and available again.
Yeah, I would say maybe Robert Taylor instead of Gomez. Don't want to risk Gomez either. He's just come back. But yeah, I agree with you, man. I'm not uncomfortable having Sergio Busquets back in there. Yes, yesterday I said that was circle my game because, circle the lineup, because I thought he was a little bit questionable there. But prove me wrong again, as always. So put him in there. Put him as a centre back. We will win every single game if he's playing there.
I don't know if we should go that far, but it's worth a try, right? You never know.
Of course.
Anything else on Busquets?
No, all good, man.
Okay, any other players you want to talk about? Kermaski was, in and out, not as impactful as he's been, but not bad.
I thought he was very fresh at the start of the game, getting involved, running around. Again, one thing I've really liked about that front five was the fluidity. They were moving around a lot more, interchanging, creating chaos in the Nashville defense. So I really like that, and I want to see more of that. There was so much movement from the front five. And speaking of Julian Gressel, he was very, very good. I had an award for him if we got to it. I think he was really good as well this game. He's just getting into this sense of confidence and control that we haven't seen from him all season. So they're all making themselves undroppable, which is really fun at this point in time. Lots of questions about when everyone comes back, who's going to play.
Yeah, but they're good questions, right? These are the fun problems, champagne problems, right? Yeah, I agree. Gressel, really good. And we talked about him a little bit earlier, and so maybe we don't need to dwell on it. Federico Redondo makes his return, plays 100 minutes. Not get an award. I don't think he was like phenomenal, but I thought he was
he was good. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
And I think having Yannick Bright behind him gives him the freedom to find the game in the way that I
think he'll be phenomenal as a number 8. Put him in that, or as a central midfielder, like the 8-6 hybrid. I think he'll be great at it. Just give him more time.
Yeah, and a little bit of protection. Ian Fray. No awards for Ian Fray, even though he was once again phenomenal. If it wasn't for Jordi Alba's banger, I think Ian Fray wins man of the match. An incredible story, and I don't know what else there is to say. He's so good. And actually, I did have an award for him. It was the Rules Have Changed award, because, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think when Messi comes back, Ian Fray bombing up that right wing and Messi playing, cutting in centrally, I'm really interested to see what that connection looks like. We thought it might be really interesting with Cello Wigan. It didn't turn out that way, but I think with Ian Fray, it really might. I'm excited to see what that pairing looks like. And I think for now, Ian Fray should stay at right back. I know he's a natural center back, but I think he just adds something different as a right back that we don't have on this team that makes me want to keep him there and give him Wednesday off so that he doesn't, overexert himself, but back in the starting lineup against Cincinnati next Saturday. And I'd like to see him get 75, 80 minutes just to build up those minutes a little bit. But dude, I think he changes what Inter Miami can do. I really do. Yeah,
completely agree with you. He's very dynamic, and as much as I really like Wiegand, I think he does the job better than Wiegand. He's a good ball carrier, really good at passing from the back. And yeah, I agree with the fact that he should be playing right back for now, at least.
Anyone else? Ryan Saylor, some questions from the chat.
Let's move on to questions from the chat and see what people around the world of Inter Miami are saying.
I got one from Skrilla that I wanted to mark down. If someone offered a good amount of money for Campana, would you sell him?
No, not unless we get like a superstar striker. He is underrated, really underrated.
He is, and it's really risky to move him because if something does happen to Suarez, the drop off from Suarez to Borgelin, or I don't even think it would be Borgelin. It would be like playing Messi as a false 9 or playing Diego Gomez as a 9 or Robert Taylor or Matías Rojas or something like that. Like you're really changing things up in a way I don't think you want to do. Here's what I will say. And I don't know if I would be okay with this, but I think it's plausible. I think that Inter Miami might move Campana and then bring in a new striker if they sell Diego Gomez and bring in a striker that's a U22 to replace Gomez there. And then that player would be the long-term striker. And then you could get a ton of resources for Campana. But I don't even think I would do that because I really love Campana. But yeah, I think that's at least a possibility. One thing I did want to mention, I just noticed the B team's playing right now, and we seem to always record while the B team's playing. Giovanni Farina, that 20-year-old kid that was loaned to the B team from
the defender,
Boca Juniors, the defender, he just appeared in the starting lineup for the first time ever. I haven't heard from this kid in 3 months, and yet he appeared in the starting lineup. So that was fun, and Santi Morales.
Something to watch out for. Yeah.
Anything else from this game, though, Saur? Can you wrap us up?
Yeah, I think that was a really good game. It's phenomenal how well this team is actually playing in different situations, in positions where we should technically be, losing. But without Messi, without Suarez, we've really come into our own. Tata Martino's picking the right formations. And there's a level of confidence now that us as fans feel, I think the players themselves are portraying on the pitch. And it just seems like this team is doing exactly what we thought it was capable of doing, and that's getting results on the road, away from home and at home. It's positive signs all along. So moving forward, I hope this continues, and soon we'll be getting 15 points out of 15 of the possible 5 without Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez. We thought we wouldn't even get 6. We're already at 9. So
9
that in
down,
itself is
6 to go.
Insane.
Yes. And you know what? They might be able to take a week vacation if we keep this up because we're doing so well. Last one from Philippe. At this point, what are your thoughts on Rojas's ball control? Do you think he even gets into the starting lineup right now, or is he a bench option for you?
I think at this point, he's a bench option for me. Yeah, maybe play him as a number 10. He could potentially fit into that Diego Gomez role, go back and forth. But at this point, it's just Gressel's really doing wonders on that right wing side. I really like him there right now. And when it's not broken, why fix it, right?
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thanks for listening. This was the wrap-up show for Inter Miami versus Nashville. Another 2-1 win. Inter Miami on an incredible streak and doing it without a few of their best players, something that I don't think a ton of MLS teams could really do. We will be back on Wednesday for the pregame show live on YouTube. For those that are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, not on YouTube, just know that the pregame show is YouTube only. So please join us 1 hour before kickoff. It's always a lot of fun. That's the next time you'll catch us, and then we'll do the post-game show and all that jazz. Other than that, it was a pleasure, and we will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful night and enjoy another Inter Miami victory. See you guys next time.